Here to cover all things crime, history, and politics, we are at the desk. I'm your host, Ryan Pattersity, and in today's episode, we will be talking about the impact of the 9/11 attacks, Eric Adams' indictment, playing a game of The Price is Right, and giving our international politics segment a new look. Without further ado, let's take a seat at the desk. We are once again back at the desk. Let's first send it over to the crime panel to discuss the far-reaching impact of 9/11. Over to you, Sean.
Thanks, Ryan. There are a few moments in human history where the world changes in an instant. September 11th, 2001 gave us one of those moments. Nearly 3,000 people were killed in New York City, Washington, D.C., and a field in Pennsylvania in a horrific terrorist attack on the United States involving 4 hijacked commercial aircraft. The day had and still has far-reaching implications on both a personal level for those who are part of it and those who witnessed it, as well as far-reaching implications that still impact us to this day. In tonight's episode, we will attempt to discuss both, how it affected the people who were there and how the day shaped the world we know today. Now, I know I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I was actually 7 years old when this happened in 2001. I grew up about 10 miles outside New York City, and I was in 2nd grade at the time. It was an early September morning, so it was just the start of the school year. And the first thing that keyed us off to something odd was going on was my teacher's cell phone rang. Now, this is 2001, keep in mind, which cell phones were not everywhere like they are today. Somebody's phone goes off, oh well, but that was weird. Our teacher took the call, had a weird look on her face. We didn't really see anything didn't really catch anything of that. But later on, the thing that really keyed us off to something weird was going on was we walked out of school, and usually there's one parent there. There's just kind of a combination of people hanging out there, all just sort of talking. It was dead quiet, and every parent for both students, both parents for every student was there. And it was the creepiest thing I've ever been a part of. I remember specifically, I was driving over the hill to pick up my brother at preschool, who was just in the town next door. And you could see the smoke from driving over that hill. That image will never leave my mind. Like, there are a few things that you never forget, and that is one of them. Because, I mean, I sort of knew what was going on at 7, you kind of know. But that image will never leave my mind as to what I saw that day. And the last creepy thing was that we're near airports. And you guys kind of know there's a lot of airports. Not a plane in the sky that night. It was dead quiet. It was weird. It was very strange. Now, so your parents are also close to New York, Sam. So what kind of did they see?
So my parents actually both lived in New York City at the time of 9/11, so I'm going to tell my dad's story and my mom's story. So I'll start with my dad. My dad was actually offered a job in the World Trade Center on the 101st floor, and he did not take the job. So if he took the job, he would not be here today, which is actually insane. But my dad worked on Wall Street at the time, and he was on the phone with somebody on the 10th floor when the plane hit the World Trade Center. And he was like, there's an earthquake just shook the ground, did you feel that? And then my dad looked up, because there were screens all over, and the hoot, which is like a loud system kind of thing, they were talking to people actually at the top of the World Trade Center during when the plane hit, and he could hear all the sounds, and then the building ended up collapsing, and all those people that he just heard and were talking to passed away. So that's my dad's story for 9/11. My mom's story, she was in the shower. She hears it on the radio, the music stops playing, she comes out. She actually got nervous. They lived really close to the World Trade Center. So she got nervous, so she started walking down to her office building, and she was right outside of ABC Studios, and she was just watching everything go down on the large TV screens. People were crying, like screaming. The debris was everywhere. My mom was actually outside during that time when that hit. And I also want to note my family friend, he was actually in one of the buildings when the plane hit as well. And they were, it was a second building, and they were told not to leave the building, not to go
correct.
downstairs. And he said, I'm going downstairs. So we took a ton of people, walked down the stairs. They were in the lobby. They weren't let out of the lobby. So he picked up a chair, threw it at the window, broke the window, and ended up saving about 20 people with him. So he tells that story to this day. Crazy story, but that's my parents' experience.
Yeah.
So
Both of my parents are from Philadelphia. So September 11th was actually my mom's first day as a diagnostic sonographer at the hospital in Center City. And when news of the attacks broke, everybody stopped what they were doing, patients and coworkers, and they ran to the TVs, crowded around the TVs, and they were in just complete disbelief. Like the whole hospital just stopped, which is really crazy considering, of course, it's a hospital. And no one saw anything like that before, so that really stuck out in her mind. And my dad, he was at his office where he works at a mortgage broker, and everybody also crowded around the TVs in disbelief, and everyone was just beside themselves. They closed the office at 10 a.m. and everybody went home. So yeah, it definitely is a day that sticks out to them.
Insane. So kind of on the other end, I'm from Pittsburgh, so both my parents at the time were teaching in Pittsburgh, still at their same exact schools, same jobs. They're in the same classrooms they were when this happened 20 years ago. So I'll kind of start with my mom, because she kind of saw it before my dad did in chronological order. So my mom was teaching at Pine Richland, and she was in a study hall, I believe. I think it was the end of their second period. And they had TVs out in the hallway, so not in the classrooms, but kind of out in the hallways for all the students to see. And she ended up getting a call from one of her friends. And she was like, you gotta come out here, like something happened, you gotta see the news. So she went out in the hallway and they had all the news on all the TVs, and that was actually when the first tower was struck. So she saw that live on TV.
A lot of people did.
Yeah. And now my dad kind of saw the other end of it, where he was also teaching in his same classroom he's still teaching at, and they also had TVs in their classrooms. So he was just teaching his class, and he ended up getting a phone call from his vice principal, and he was like, oh my gosh, are you watching the news? Are you watching the TV? And he was like, no, I'm teaching a class. And he was like, you gotta turn it on, like something very bad is happening. So he turns the TV on. He has a class of 30 students sitting in there, and they turn on the TV, and they actually saw the tower collapse in front of their eyes, which is just crazy. He said at first he kind of thought it was maybe an accident. They didn't really know what was happening. I mean, at the time, technology, social media was not how it is today. There weren't like constant, Twitter updates, TikTok, it was just kind of like no one knew what was happening. It was a really scary and confusing time. And he was so distraught, he turned off the TV, and he just told his students, remain calm, like it's gonna be okay. And, parents started showing up to the school, picking up their children, getting out of there. So yeah, it's something that always sticks with him. He always remembers it. Something that'll never leave his
How
mind.
old were the students? I'm curious.
So he teaches middle school, so they were only in 7th grade. So very young. Imagine seeing that. I mean, he says
that
his
age.
students still remember that. I mean, it's probably something they can't, ever get out of their minds. So they were very young.
At that age, to see that is
Exactly.
That's
crazy.
something.
Even for him, it was hard. So
Yeah.
imagine being that young,
that young and seeing
and
such
seeing
thing.
it. Insane.
So my family, they were all living in a city called Kennesaw, Georgia, which is right north of Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And my mother and my father both have the different accounts of it, of course. My mother was working at a Publix at the time, and she was working, of course, early in the morning, and she was somehow like pulled into the back room, and she saw on the TV what was going on in New York, and she calls my father, he was on his way to give a garden talk at an old folks home. And he remembers listening to the news in the car, hearing what my mom was saying, and then he had to kind of give a speech about landscaping to some older folks. And he told me that they didn't know, and that this had all just happened right before he walked into the door. And so he felt this just weight of knowing something so terrible had just happened. And he had to keep it hearted. He's, a jolly Midwestern guy. Of course, he's just going to talk about plants, and everybody, had that one last moment of there's no fear here. But our perspective is obviously very different than the Northeastern perspective, because we weren't anywhere close. But there was this looming threat that the CDC was going to be the next target, because that is in Atlanta. And, you know, my father talks about we didn't know who was going to be next. Chicago, New York had been hit. What about LA? What about DC? That got hit, you know? There's a lot of fear going around the country because you don't know who was next. But one of my favorite things that he did mention to me was the growing of patriotic just feelings around. He told me that all of the American flags were sold out at his Home Depot because everybody was just supporting each other. It didn't just affect a family or a city, it affected the nation, the world.
That's an incredible point that you make, that it, even though we felt it more personally on our level because our families lived around the area, the effects were enormous across the entire ecosystem just in the world. Eva has an interesting point about Flight 93 and how that played into
I
all
just
of
definitely
this
want to hit on Flight 93. I mean, some people might have knowledge of it, but I just think it's something super important just to mention and tackle because these people are like unspoken heroes. They're just phenomenal. So obviously, as we know, there were 4 planes that were hijacked, 2 into the Twin Towers and the 1 into the Pentagon. But this flight, Flight 93, it was headed, I believe, towards the Chicago area. And the crew, someone I want to mention, Todd Beamer, kind of the captain of all of this, he ended up getting on a phone call with his wife. He ended up being able to reach her. And they were on the phone and she alerted him that the other 3 planes had like crashed. And so he kind of realized like this is probably what their plan is for this plane. I don't know where it's going, maybe somewhere in DC, you know, the capital, whatever, but he knew like this could have been a way deadlier act. So he kind of rallied all 40 selfless and courageous crew members, and they all kind of rallied together. And something that I think is so cool that he said is he stood up in front of the plane, in front of the entire crew, and said, "Let's roll." And they did it. And they got into the cockpit and crashed the plane in Shanksville, PA, which is close to me. It's like an hour from Pittsburgh. And I mean, I just have to say, these people are so courageous to be able to do something like that, to know you are doing this for your country. They stopped an even deadlier attack. So many more people could have died. And the bravery is just insane. I was very fortunate enough to be able to visit Shanksville, PA over COVID. And me and my family kind of went there for the day, and we just walked around, and they have a beautiful memorial set up to honor all the lives that were lost on the plane. And it's heartbreaking, but it's so amazing to see these people who fought so hard for our country and be so brave in that moment, because that is so hard to do. And I just think they need an extra shout out because they are all unspoken heroes.
As
Absolutely.
Eva said, I believe personally that they saved thousands of lives.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
100%.
and
Absolutely.
probably some part of DC itself.
Yeah.
And the fact that they often get forgotten because they crashed into a field in Pennsylvania
Right.
is heartbreaking to an extent. And I think it's vital that we remember that these people were what they were. They were
Heroes.
unspoken
Yeah.
heroes
Unspoken
who
heroes.
realized that something had to be done, and they went ahead and did it.
And they went
did-
into action. They jumped to it.
They did not care about their own lives in a situation where they knew that the needs of the many were more important than the needs of the one.
Yeah,
It's
Completely
Absolutely.
selfless.
Exactly.
So, in a way, you know, as we mentioned, 9/11 changed the world, and it changed the United States in a way that we'll never understand to a full extent. But sort of DHS, Department of Homeland Security, was founded off of what happened in 9/11. If you want to go into that just a little bit, because I know
Yeah.
you're kind of a criminology person.
So, as you mentioned, Department of Homeland Security was created in 2003 post 9/11, and it covers Homeland Security in the United States. It also covers the border and also covers, you know, other countries and their impact on the United States. I also want to mention TSA. You've seen airports get more secure. You've seen more security checks, and they combat terroristic threats almost every day that come in, that come out. And we're really fortunate that things like this were created post 9/11.
You know, I know none of you ever went through an airport pre 9/11, which I did, and just the amount of security, the changes were overnight, and they were enormous. As dark as that bright September morning felt 23 years ago, and while the momentous consequences of that day are still felt, hope was found, lives and buildings were rebuilt, and the memories of those lost in the attacks lives on to this day. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Sean. Stay tuned for our politics panel as they discuss the charges pressed against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. We'll be right back at the desk. back to ATD. It's time to send it over to the politics panel to discuss the indictment against New York Mayor Eric Adams, as well as candidates from both sides of the presidential race attending college football games. Over to you, Jackson.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been an interesting week for American politics as New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted on 5 federal public corruption charges, including bribery and wire fraud. The indictment was unsealed last Thursday, yielding public outrage and surprise to some New Yorkers. Adams' lawyer, Alex Spiro, has openly denounced the charges and has accused them of being fake. On a more positive and patriotic note, President Trump and vice presidential candidate Tim Walz both made appearances at college football games on Saturday, with Walz attending the game between Michigan and Minnesota and Trump attending the primetime game between Alabama and Georgia. Both candidates received mixed reactions, to say the least. So guys, I want to discuss the more fun topic first. Let's talk about the college football. Trump went to Bama, and he received I'd say a more positive ovation. Tim Walz, a little more of a mixed one. You know, he got booed going into the game, but Donald Trump did receive some boos as well. So I want to start with you, Yaya. What do you think, the reactions that you saw there? I mean, given the fact that Trump was in a southern state and that Tim Walz is in more of a swing state, what do you think that means for the election and, those guys going out in like a public setting like that in a non-political setting?
I mean, I think, well, for one, I'm going to say Trump kind of played it safe going to Alabama. I feel like he wouldn't have tried that in California. He definitely wouldn't have tried that somewhere like blue. So I think he played it safe. Tim Walz getting booed kind of made me laugh, not to be mean, but I think it really shows that like the swing states are going to be so key, and especially like Harris and Walz have to do a really good job at making sure that they're hitting those constituencies that are more up north, to make sure that they really have a strong foothold. I think it's really smart on the part of both Walz and Trump to go to college football games, because you're not only hitting a key demographic, which is college students, because obviously the youth is who both of our candidates are aiming to sway, I guess, in this election, but you're getting so many people. You're getting people watching from home, you're getting families, alumni, you're getting, people who are a little bit younger and everything like that. So I think this was a very smart campaigning move. Honestly, I think it'd be fun to see them do a whole tour of just like college football games. I think that'd be really cool.
I'd love to see it.
Well, before I talk politics, let's get to the elephant in the room. Roll Tide. I was so happy.
Roll
they
Tide,
won.
baby.
Roll
Hey,
Tide.
hey.
Hey, I don't want Georgia winning a national
stinks.
championship.
That's right.
I hope it's a Big Ten team. Obviously, of course, I hope it's Penn State because we're a University Park. But who knows? But first of all, Roll Tide, and I love their new coach. All that fun stuff. But let's get back to business. We'll talk about the college football, Walz getting booed, all that. The big game that should be on every single political campaigner's schedule that's affected by Pennsylvania, whether through the Electoral College, the Senate, mayor, whatever. Big game. Ohio State, Penn State, November 2nd. Everybody and their grandma and their grandma's best friend is going to be at that game. Campaign at that game. I think we're going to see probably Walz there. We're probably also going to see somebody from the Trump campaign there as well. It's a very big game, and you would think, big Michigan fan that he is, he always talks about it, you're going to hope that Trump's vice president is going to be there, or a potential vice president.
Oh, no, Ohio State fan.
Ohio State.
Ohio
That's
State
right,
is
you're
his-
right.
He'd be very
Ohio
mad if he
State
heard
fan.
that.
You're absolutely right. I'm sorry, I apologize. Big Ohio State fan. He's going to have to be at that game. And that game is going to be a decider because there's 2 reasons. Well, one, first of all, Ohio, although it is very strongly leaning in one direction, it can still go both directions. And on the other hand, Pennsylvania is separated right now by less than a percentage point in favor of Harris and flipped from 2016 to 2020. So that is a very important game on the schedule for both campaigns.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Ohio State is J.D. Vance's alma mater, too. So
I
he
apologize.
has to
I
be
said
there.
Michigan thinking Ohio State.
J.D. Vance is going to see that and be like, Ryan Lowy, how could you?
I couldn't blame him, but he's made so many mistakes, he would have to forgive me.
Maybe so. Francie?
A couple things. I agree with your statement on Ohio State and Penn State. I think that would be a pretty crucial point in the campaign trail. But I know I kind of want to pivot with this. When we're talking about a younger demographic, and I know we talked about this prior, it made me think, it jogged my memory of how Kamala's reaching the younger demographic with her TikToks. I know I'm kind of swaying off the point, but hear me out. She has a whole group of kids our age running her TikTok, and with the vice president nomination picks, Vance and Tim Walz and Trump, whoever, going to these football games, it reminds me of the kind of that demographic look that Kamala's getting from her TikTok, right? And this brings in this whole campaign strategy idea of how, yes, swing states are key, but also our vote. Our young vote is, I think, might make or break this election, and that can be an argument made at a different time. But when we start talking about football, it jogged my memory of how strong of a TikTok presence that she has, and the whole brat thing this past summer. That's a campaign strategy, right? That is a marketing strategy that she's pulling, just like these Trump and Walz going to these football games are just the same. But I thought it was funny because I was reading an article in The Hill, and it said that Trump was seen tossing several boxes of chicken tenders at excited
I saw the
fans.
video. It was pretty awesome.
And I started laughing out loud because
He's a fast
imagining
food
him do
maniac.
that, I would crack
He's
up.
an American. That's what he is. He's an American.
I would crack up. That just shows a little bit of Trump. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
I mean, that's really smart. It really goes to show that, like, the conversation when Joe Biden was still running, the conversation about age, like, was really something that their campaign managers and even the candidates themselves were paying attention to. Because you hear a bunch of, like, 20-something-year-olds, 18, 20-something-year-olds saying, oh, no, Biden is way too old. We see Trump using that kind of as leverage against Biden. And then now we see them making a more concerted effort to reach people our age. I think, honestly, if I wasn't in the position that I'm in right now, having a chicken basket thrown at me at a football game would sway my vote. If I wasn't who I was right now, you would have my vote just because of
Well,
that.
I mean, yeah, it gave us a lot of charm, and I do think that the going to the football game is going to appeal to young men more. And what we're seeing,
100%.
yeah, and what we're seeing is the Republicans are doing very well with young men, but the Democrats are doing very well with young women. So I do think that the majority of people running Kamala's TikTok account will be young women, and they're doing a very good job. I've seen the videos; they're captivating a lot of people.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump has also made a TikTok presence himself. He's also been using the social media websites because obviously he was very pro TikTok. We talked about this last semester. He didn't
Yeah.
want TikTok to get banned.
Yeah.
So he's been utilizing it, and I mean, I think he's doing a good job too. Both parties are doing a very good job at utilizing the young vote and getting them out. I think it's going to be a very high turnout election.
And you know what this comes back to is that my algorithm is definitely 100% different than your algorithm. So I actually have not seen a lot of Trump's present TikToks
Yeah.
I
on my
second that. I have not seen too
on,
many.
on
He has
my
millions
TikTok.
of followers,
I
millions.
believe-
Probably
believe that.
because of where technology works nowadays, and what I'm engaging with is going to show me things that I like and things that are going to keep me scrolling.
It's that echo chamber.
That's also another topic we can talk about.
Yes,
but-
that is challenging. But we have to move on to the more sad topic. I mean, you're pretty close to this one, I think, Northern Jersey. But yes, the
Just a
beloved,
bridge away.
The beloved mayor of New York has been indicted, 5 different charges. 2 charges on solicitation of a contribution from a foreign national, 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 1 count of wire fraud, and 1 count of bribery. These are very serious. It came down Thursday, and it has been the talk of the town. So I want to start with Ryan, actually. So what do you think about all this?
Well, I think it's very plain and simple here. And this is a weird thing to say, but if Eric Adams endorsed Donald Trump, that would be a big investment into his political future. That's a crazy thing to say, but a truth. A lot of people have been joking about that. Obviously, that's never going to happen. Politically speaking, the best thing for him to do right now would be to fight these charges until he cannot anymore, because he's likely facing jail time, and he's likely never going to be in power again. This, no matter what the result is going to taint his political career. And in terms of who's going to take over and all those questions, New York City has a weird charter. Kathleen Hochul, the governor of New York, can at any time she wants remove him from office and replace him with Jermaine Jones, who is the city advocate. And once he takes over, he will have 3 days to call for a special election. That special election, which would be nonpartisan, anybody can write their name down, including my dog Cassie. I know she would love to be involved in that. Has 80 days until the vote can happen. So that's kind of like how it's going to work if he disappears from the whole thing, but I think he's going to have to stay and fight these charges and clear his name if he wants to go down in the record books as a hero. And the best, and the weirdest thing for me to say, the best political, and I already said this, ideology for him if he wants to keep his career going is to endorse Donald Trump.
I
They
think
have a very
it's
similar
It's
story.
strange.
so
Yes, it
interesting
is.
that you say that, because Eric Adams actually, he himself made comments that he was being targeted by the federal government.
Right.
Where have we heard this before?
Trump said I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Go ahead.
Trump said that Adams is a fellow victim of political motivated prosecutors.
Yeah, the
So-
the whole weaponization of the justice
Yeah.
system. Eric Adams is using that same kind of rhetoric. So I think it's very interesting that you bring up. That's what I was thinking too when I was
I
doing
like
my research.
controversial
I was like, I feel like this could be a team up in the future that nobody saw coming,
Right.
but could literally and figuratively shake the table,
Well,
shake the political
let's think about this
table.
for a second, though. We have RFK Jr., a lifelong Democrat, aligning with Trump now. I mean, you never know. Now, that being said, Eric Adams is not going to endorse Trump. I'd say there's about a 99.99999% chance that he does not endorse Trump. But I do have to question the charges, though, because we've been seeing a lot of the weaponization of the DOJ, things like that with Donald Trump. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that Eric Adams did criticize Biden's immigration policies early on in his term, and that may play a factor here.
Well, I'm not going to correct you because you're right. He's never gotten along with Biden, and he's really never gotten along with Kamala Harris either. He's not a true Democrat when it comes to lining the ticket. he doesn't really align the ticket. He's his own thing. He likes to say, "Oh, I'm from New York." You know, he's centered around New York, and he looks for New York. He doesn't look for help from D.C. He's a very grassroots, local, blue-collar, former law enforcement kind of guy. He doesn't look for anyone's help, and that's why I think he's going to take this head on. And what was really interesting too is that he is being defended in court by somebody very interesting. This person has defended a lot of famous people, a whole list of it, and people like, for example, Jay-Z have looked for his help. And to have someone that prominent and that experienced within that area of law enforcement and within that area of the courts can help him fight the charges. He claims that it was actually just an upgrade and that it wasn't Turkey influencing him. He's making all these wild claims that his trial attorneys are having trouble looking at it and going, ooh, you know what, this is going to be difficult to prosecute, because he is making a lot of good cases through a very strong lawyer.
Do you have the name of do you remember who you said with Jay-Z?
His lawyer.
His
Yeah,
lawyer.
his lawyer.
Right,
Remember?
Alex Spiro.
Alex Spiro.
Okay.
Alex
Yes, yes,
Spiro.
Alex
okay.
Spiro's defending him.
Just
We've
jog
seen-
my memory.
Yep, Jay-Z, Elon Musk, Alec Baldwin. I mean, this guy is going to put a lot of pressure on the courts to prosecute Eric Adams.
Elon Musk,
And
another
he's
Trump
made a
ally, another connection there.
He's made a lot of strong claims. It's going to be a tough case to prosecute, especially when you see Adams aligning himself with other people who have been complaining about the system. Your Elon Musks, your Donald Trumps. This is going to be a very dramatic federal court case that could see its way all the way maybe to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. And I agree with, going back, because this was a big conversation we just had, you mentioned Trump and him. I think that if that were to happen, I kind of agree with you. I think that would be a long shot. But you said that, I mean, we know that RFK is now endorsing Trump but he's doing that because he has a spot now in his campaign, right? So maybe if the tables turned and then there was like a little bit of a, come along, join me, Trump, and Adams was like, if I can kind of be a part, I don't know. Once again, hypothetical, but
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think people only do things if they have their own benefit, right?
Right.
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
turn the page
I was
on
gonna
that.
say, like, Eric Adams is not super popular in New York. Like, he has a lot of mixed reviews. I haven't been able to find the numbers on like his approval rating right now.
Under 50.
Right, he's not popular in New York at all. But this could either go the Trump route, and like these charges could either like send his political career like sky high, or he could be tanked. And I'm leaning more towards he's gonna get tanked by these charges, because regardless if he keeps on fighting them, the fact that the public opinion of him is already so low, even if he's vindicated
Yeah,
at the
he's
end of
got,
this,
like,
nobody's
zero.
going to want to see him in office again.
That's what I'm saying,
Yes.
exactly. So really, the only way to not commit political suicide, innocent or guilty, in any level of court of law, is to align with the Republicans and the MAGA movement.
Of course.
very
Because, and that's the thing, though.
unrealistic.
Eric Adams does not have the national following
what
that
he's
Donald
going
Trump does.
Right.
And that's why Trump was able to skyrocket in the polls after his conviction. Now, and I don't think Eric Adams, if he is convicted, I think he'll be in deep trouble compared to Trump.
Adams has a lot of people coming out against him. He's had a lot of resignations. He's had Police Commissioner Edward Caban, a lot of drama around his former police commissioner, his school's chancellor David Banks, who was married to his first deputy mayor. They're both out the door. Most recently today, we had law enforcement advisor Timothy Pearson, who worked with him in the NYPD, drop out of his administration.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's not a good sign.
Everything's
That's just showing-
falling apart. It's looking very similar to what we're seeing in North Carolina. Everyone's just dropping out, and he's just slowly falling behind. And I love to think about who could potentially take him. You not take him out necessarily, but beat him in the election in a year, in the primaries now. Because if he wins this, he's going to have a lot of trouble, even with the win, of winning a primary in a year. He's going to have to take on Governor Cuomo wants to do it. You got 2 former city comptrollers who are pretty popular who want the position. There are all these big names that want to step in and take his job. And if he steps out this year because rather Hochul removes him or he's prosecuted and he goes to jail for whatever reason, that's an incumbency position that could be taken by a big name if there is a special election
And so, what do you,
called.
and Ryan, I want to hear your opinion. What do you think are the chances of Hochul removing him from office as of right now?
Well,
said-
she said she's going to do what's in the best interest of New York. Go ahead.
She said, I'm giving the mayor an opportunity to now demonstrate to New Yorkers and to me that we are righting the ship, that we have the opportunity to still instill the confidence that I think is wavering right now, and the power forward with an effective government. And then I also read, she obviously has the power to remove him from office, but told Reporters Money that she had spoken to the mayor about what her expectations are, but she never indicated she was ready to give up on his administration, which I don't really think is
I mean, he's already said that he's not going to resign, so I don't know what
Yes,
what
he's-
he's
yes.
hoping for. I honestly think that that would be his best bet because he can fight the charges like as a civilian. I guess I feel like it's just gonna if he's continuing to be in the public spotlight, that's just gonna continue to tank his image. And the fact that all of his administration, everybody in his cabinet is dropping out is not a good sign for him because it's not even a matter of if they believe that he's guilty or innocent. They could believe that he's innocent 100%,
They just want no part. They're-
but they
they're at a
don't want
point where-
any part of
yeah.
him. And if he had a cabinet that was loyal to him, that like believed in his vision for New York, then I feel like they would have stood by him. So I honestly don't see any way out of this for Adams except for
There's
aligning with
prominent
Trump
religious
and-
figures citywide that spoke on his behalf, but it's still not looking good for him. He's been heckled. He's been told he's been things like quote unquote a disgrace to the black community.
Yep.
He's gotten a lot of comments against him. But what's interesting is the timing, because again, we're so close to the primary for his spot. That's coming up in just 7-8 months, the primary for the
Yeah.
next election. I mean, he's only a year out of surrendering his position in office if he stays in due to timing. So, he doesn't really have much left in him. So it's all about his image right now. Does he want to take a political course in his career further and defend himself? Or does he just want to sit back and say, you know what, this just isn't going to work for me? He's really, in my opinion, knowing the guy that he is, he's going to have to fight
Knowing the
this.
guy,
Knowing him on TV. I've actually spoken to individuals from the NYPD who have met him before. He's not that far out from the NYPD. Not
Yeah.
directly knowing the guy, but because I've been near
I
the
was just
city
thinking- I
before,
was just-
and yeah, obviously. But just individuals have said he's a fighter and he's going to stay there. So they're really going to have to push him out. And I don't think Hochul's going to want to get her hands dirty because she already just won a tough election not too long ago.
Yeah, she doesn't.
She's
She
not
doesn't.
incredibly popular. People don't know about her very well. She doesn't want to do something too autocratic if he's proven innocent. So she's got to
Yeah.
be careful getting her hands dirty. He's got to be careful getting his hands dirtier.
Yes, these New York politicians, they seem to have a complete lack of
They don't
popularity.
behave. They don't
Yeah, they don't behave.
They don't like
Yeah,
them.
Kathy Hochul, she won a very, very narrow election, like for New
Right.
York standards, for a Democrat.
Yeah.
And Mayor Adams, again, very low approval rating. I mean, yeah, just very, very poor performance.
It's not
Like,
just that. Do you remember de Blasio ever being on good standing with the citizens
De
of New York
Blasio
City?
was, I remember, it was some guy from ABC, I believe, he said he was the worst mayor in New York City history. And that was saying something. This was a lifelong New Yorker. I
You know,
forget his name.
you know what he'll tell you if you ever question him for that? Bike lanes. He loved bike lanes. So he did do some good
Bike
things.
lanes are great
Bike lanes are great.
Bike lanes are
in
amazing.
New York City. Actually, they're a little dangerous sometimes, though.
They can be. I mean, New Yorkers are pretty crazy, as we know.
Yeah,
But,
no,
I mean, they also did elect Mayor Adams, so there you go. But
They elected Mayor Adams, and Mayor Adams beat a former candidate for president from the Democratic Party. So he did a lot of work. He was against a lot of opposition. And right now, it looks like he's coming towards the end of his career unless he makes some major changes and
looks like
considers
that.
endorsing
How
a
the mighty
different
fall.
candidate. Yeah,
How the
exactly.
mighty fall. Mayor Adams has requested that Judge Dale Ho throw out the bribery charge, claiming that said charge does not amount to a federal crime. More details about the case of the Big Apple will be released in the coming weeks. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Jackson. Stay tuned for a fun game of The Price is Right with the History Panel. We will meet you back at the desk. We are back at the desk. Let's visit the History Panel and play a game of The Price is Right. Over to you, Yaya.
Thanks, Ryan. Currency has always been central to civilization, whether in the form of hides, shells, gold, or a crisp Benjamin Franklin straight from the ATM. Money makes the world go round. We're at a place in history where it feels like we spend $50 for every breath taken. But this week, the History Panel is here to show that even our textbook heroes were breaking the bank. Tonight, we are playing The Price is Right. We will each try to guess how much a historical item or event costs in today's currency, and the panelist with the closest guess wins the round. The winner gets bragging rights and complete control over my bank account. Seriously, I need help. All right, guys, so is everybody ready? We're going to be talking money.
So ready. My aunt was on The Price is Right.
Let's get into it.
aunt was on The Price is
Right? That's fantastic.
You need to send us the episode. All right, let's get started with the first question. How much does the United Nations pay Austria every year to host their
Building in Vienna.
building in Vienna? Somebody else is going to have to read that.
What are your guys' guesses?
What are
This
your
is mine, by
guesses?
the way.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay.
Like, I have no, like, frame of reference for this.
For an
I have
annual
no idea
payment.
how much. Okay.
This started in 1979, by the way, after the construction completed.
Okay. What we're
Okay.
talking about now.
It's been a stagnant rate, though. So.
Okay.
I see.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll start off with a guess of, I want to say $4 million. I'll add a decimal in there, $4.1 million. Just because I believe, well, they don't have to build a new building. They have a venue to host it at.
Okay. I like your guess.
I felt 1.5. That spoke to
1.5
me.
million?
Yeah.
Million? I'm feeling like they're extravagant. I'm gonna say something like 350 mil.
Okay.
Wow, blew the other ones out of the water. I was
Yup.
kind of also thinking in that range though, but now I kind of feel dumb. I'll go like kind of in the middle of like both of you guys, kind of try to average you guys out, kind of. I'll go like 50 million.
All right. So our winner here is Jamie, because he was the closest. Because the United Nations pays $1 every
Oh my
year
goodness.
to the country of Austria to pay for the United Nations to be there, and that's because of all the tourism money they make off the UN. The only reason they have to pay anything at all is because Austria is a neutral country, and in 1979 they established a law that in order to have any sort of building in the country, you had to pay something. I learned this when I was at the United Nations actually this past summer. It is only one singular dollar that they pay every single year just to have the building there.
Do they pay that in cash or do they write a check? Do you know?
It's a check. A check comes in the mail to Austria every year from the United Nations, I swear.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. It was completed in 1979. The building you can see on the picture there was designed by Johann Strauber. They had a huge competition and everything like that, and he thought that they were going to have to pay millions of dollars to have his building there, and it was only $1 a year.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, I feel
All
stupid.
right.
All right, next one. Next one.
Seriously. Next one.
All right, how much was Alaska sold for?
Per
How
acre.
much was Alaska sold for per acre by Russia in 1867?
This is also mine.
Oh wow! Okay, great.
Yeah.
Per acre. So let's start with Audrey this time.
Okay, per acre. I feel like he threw me off with the $1. So now I'm like, I'll go for per acre. I'll go 450.
450 what?
Dollars.
Okay. 4.50 or 450?
450.
450.
James, let's do you first. I just have to think.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Feeling like a 15,000.
Okay.
I think.
Per acre.
So it's current value. So like with inflation, I'm gonna go.
Are we doing current values?
Yeah, of course.
So
Oh my god. Okay, wait. Let me do math.
So with current value, I'm gonna go a little lower. I'm gonna say 10,000 per acre.
Okay.
Per acre.
Yeah,
You guys
per
know I
acre.
actually have no concept of money, even though I've taken multiple international political economy classes.
Hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and say like 50K per acre.
50K? All right. What are you thinking?
I'll stay low. I'll go 3,000.
And that was a good choice because the answer is 50 cents per acre. That's how much it was purchased for. It was actually 2 cents back in the day.
I don't
and it
Brandon,
was
you're making me
equivalent
more right
to 50 cents. It was purchased for a total of $7.2 million, which in today's money is about $119 million. And at the time, it was purchased by the Secretary of State. His name is William Seward, excuse me. And for a while there, Alaska was nothing. Russia sold it to us just because they didn't want the British to be able to attack them from the east. So they sold it to us thinking that it was stupid, it had no value, anything like that. And for 20 years, it was called Seward's Folly because of how just bad of a purchase they thought it was. And then it turns out 25 years later, they found gold in Yukon, and now it's one of our most rich natural resource states. So it ended up being a very good investment. And yeah, 50 cents per acre in today's money.
I don't like Brandon's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope
I'm a little mad.
You got a point, though.
Okay.
Okay, next one. Let's go.
All right, well, this one's mine. How much money did Greece spend to host the first ever Olympics in 1896?
Brandon, let's start with you.
$1 million in current value.
Oh, I have no concept of money. This is what this game is teaching me. 500,000. I'll be the low guess. I'm a little scarred from Brandon.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in the same boat as Audrey. I'm gonna go a little higher. I'm gonna go like 350,000.
I'm feeling like a 10,000. I don't know. I again, I have no idea what it takes to host an Olympic Games, especially like 150 years
1896.
ago.
Right?
Probably not too much. Just a couple sticks.
I guess. Yeah.
A rock.
Lock it in.
Something like that.
Well, I fear Brandon may have scared you guys a little too much because the actual cost was $10 million. 10 million USD.
Drop
Now,
price.
at the time, it was,
Wow.
there's
there's so many sources that actually talk about this, and there's so many different price breakdowns. The two that I found were either 3.5 million drachmas at the time or 1.5. However, the current value remains consistent across all the sources that I found. Something that is interesting about it is you look at how much it costs now, like to host it. It's like billions of dollars, and back then it's like, and most of the athletes were from Greece, so I'm sure that had a huge part in it. But yeah,
Brandon, how much
10
did you say?
million.
I said $1 million. That was the closest.
Darn it.
You
Okay,
were the
next one.
closest.
This is making me mad. All right.
This was mine.
Yes, go ahead, James. Talk to us.
So Manhattan Island was acquired from the Native Americans by the Dutch colonist Peter Minuit in 1626. He purchased the land by trading goods with the natives, and the total price of these goods amounted to what amount?
3 furs.
So you're saying you're asking for the price of the goods that he traded in order to get Manhattan.
Correct.
Ooh.
Okay.
In today's dollars, 1626. I'm going to go with $500,000. That's what that means, right?
I'm so scared of what we've heard today in range. I'm like, I have no idea where to go with this. I'll say $500,000.
I'm going to say $35,000.
I'm gonna go with $86.
That's
What's the
oddly
answer?
specific.
Chase, correct.
Exactly?
It was pretty close.
Oh, 24. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Really
Lord.
Adjusted to today's money, it's $1,000. So, some serious expenditure here. It was mostly in the form of decorative glass beads.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Good for him.
It was a bargain.
Wow.
Big bargain. Well, greatest city in the world, I guess. Let's go to the next one. Okay, this is mine. How many pounds of gold did each camel carry on Mansa Musa's trip to Hajj? If you don't know what Hajj is, that's the Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca. It is said that he carried 100 camels.
100 camels
Okay,
with
so
gold on them?
100 camels of gold, okay? 100 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of gold. Yes?
Okay.
So how much did each camel carry in today's dollars?
Okay.
I remember in history learning that Mansa Musa was like rich AF, so I cannot quantify that for any of you guys. I'll say like pounds of gold on the camel's backs.
Yeah, but how much? So I told you 300 pounds. How
Okay.
much is that in today's dollars?
Oh,
Lightning round, guys. Lightning round.
Okay.
Everybody just throw out
Wow.
numbers.
300 million.
There you go.
20 million.
Okay.
20 mil. Oh wait, that was your answer. wait, sorry, this is what I have. I'll go 15.
I'm going to go 518,496,212.
Okay.
Okay.
Try hard. Anyways, in today's money, as of September 27, 2024, it was $11.6 million on every single camel's back.
Oh, but how many camels were there?
100.
So I think I was the closest then.
What did you
But
say?
but the
You
question
said
was
like
per
a million
camel.
Yeah, it
letters.
said per
But the
camel.
question was per
So-
camel.
So
Yeah.
So was I closest? I
You
said
were the
15.
closest. 15 million. You said
Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
said
that's
300. Yes, so there you go. Audrey got that point. Next one.
All right.
Ooh, okay, this is also mine. How much money in today's dollars did the government spend to build the United States White House? Getting a little local here.
$4.5 million.
There you go. Thank you for the answer. Quick.
40
2 million.
$40?
million.
Million.
$9 million.
9 million.
2 million.
2 million? And the answer was $5 million. $5.8 million.
You're killing it.
No, I'm trying.
That was in the 200,000. That was in 1800. So our White House is very expensive, guys. Only the best for the leader of the free world.
And
Am
you
I
know,
right
in
or am I right?
Some of my research, I found that the original salary of the president was $85,000 a year, which equates to about $850,000 in today's money.
That's insane.
That's why George Washington was one of the richest presidents ever.
Inflation.
And there you go.
Inflation.
Next one. Do you have any more?
Oh, this is mine. How much did John Lennon's molar tooth sell for?
Scared $200,000.
I'm gonna say like $350,000.
350?
1.5 million.
1.5 million?
Who would buy it? And how much money would you spend
I'll
on
tell you
John
who bought
Lennon's
it.
tooth?
A dentist bought it.
I'm still
Figures.
gonna go low. I'm gonna go with $10,000.
And you were the closest. It was $31,000. And the story about it isn't that interesting. The story after is, it was given to his housekeeper because she was a big fan. What happened afterward was it was given to this dentist. And he's from Canada. His name is Michael Zuck. And he's currently using it to try and track down lost sons and daughters of John Lennon, people who were illegitimate children of him, excuse me. And he is trying to basically claim John Lennon's inheritance via finding somebody that is his son or daughter.
That's insane.
And he's a psychopath for that.
Like I said, money
No
makes
offense, Mr.
money
Zuck.
makes the world go round, because all this for inheritance, that's crazy.
It's nasty.
Very nasty, actually. That's all the time we have for today. Some of these numbers made my head spin, not because they were super big, but because they were so low. But I hope you all take away from one thing from this episode. If you think you have a spending problem, you can rest easy. Your ancestors were probably worse. We hope you enjoyed this week's history panel. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Yaya. Stay tuned for our new vision of our international politics segment. We will see you back at the desk. Welcome back to ATD. Let's check out our international politics segment. Over to you, Emma and Massimo.
Welcome to ATD International. I'm Emma Goldkoff.
And I'm Massimo Manfra. Tonight we begin talking to you about Hassan Nasrallah. If you're unaware, Nasrallah was killed by an Israeli airstrike on Friday, September 27th in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. He was the leader of the Lebanese-based militant group Hezbollah for over 30 years and was a highly influential figure in the region. He was also largely involved in dealings with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The killing significantly escalates the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah as their conflict with Hamas continues.
Switching gears to the Russia-Ukraine war, 2 Russian attacks on a medical center in northeastern Ukraine resulted in the death of at least 9 people, with 21 others wounded. In Russia, over 100 Ukrainian drones were shot down on Sunday in one of the largest barrages of the war. Russia's Ministry of Defense says that the drones were shot down overnight across 7 different regions.
On Saturday, 6 NATO countries bordering Russia and Belarus announced that they would be building a wall. A drone wall, that is. This innovative plan between Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, and Norway, alongside other defenses such as fences, bunkers, and trenches. These preparations serve as a sign for readiness for NATO and serve as a deterrent to Russia.
One of France's far-right leaders, Marine Le Pen, went on trial on Monday. She and her National Rally Party are being accused of embezzling European Parliament funds. Le Pen remains confident, telling reporters that she has not violated any political or regulatory rules. This case could take another toll on her political future as the trial unfolds over the next 9 weeks. That's all for your ATD International Update.
Thanks, Emma. Sadly, that is all the time we have for today. In the meantime, stay updated with ATD on all of our socials and let us know what you want to see us cover next. I'm Ryan Patterson, and we will see you next week back at the desk.